Hey guys, welcome to Section 1, Chapter 6 of the Geometry program. And in this section, we're going to be classifying quadrilaterals. Maybe you see this root word quad here, indicating that we're dealing with four-sided figures. That doesn't really give us a clear picture of the type of shapes that we're working with. So we're going to go ahead and define more specifically types of quadrilaterals. The first being a parallelogram. So a parallelogram is a quadrilateral with both pairs of opposite sides congruent. So if you want to draw yourself a little picture here, then you can mark opposite sides parallel. Now notice we're going to start making a distinction with our dashes even for parallel lines. So a single dash is going to go with a single dash and a double with a double. Okay. The next type of quadrilateral is called a rhombus, and a rhombus is specifically a parallelogram, so we're going to have opposite sides parallel, but also all of the sides are congruent. So if you want to draw that a little bit narrower, you're going to see opposite sides parallel, but then all the sides are congruent. So it looks like a square that's kind of turned. All right, next up is your rectangle. This one you should be most familiar with, which is a parallelogram. So we have opposite sides parallel, but also we have four right angles. All right, that's going to define our rectangle for us. Then probably one of our favorite shapes is the square. So the square is a parallelogram with all four sides congruent and also four right angles. All right, then we have a kite, which is a quadrilateral with two pairs of adjacent sides congruent and no opposite sides congruent. So what does that look like? He's going to look something like this. So adjacent means touching. So you're going to have touching sides that are congruent and no opposite sides congruent. Finally, we have a trapezoid, and a trapezoid is a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides. So this would look something like this. Okay, but then we also have a special type of the trapezoid, and that's called an isosceles trapezoid. And an isosceles trapezoid also has one set of congruent sides. One set of congruent sides. So this would be a special form of the trapezoid. And we're going to see one of these in our examples. Okay, so on your homework, you're going to have to identify the types of shapes that they are. So we want to give it the most precise name. What I don't want you to do is to go through and write quadrilateral for each of these. That's not the objective. So try to use your information to be precise as possible. All right, let's look at our first example. Here we have a set of parallel sides here and another set here. So we know that we're at least a parallelogram. But then also notice that all the sides are the same. So when we have two sets of parallel sides and all the sides are the same, this is a rhombus. Okay, moving on, example 2 here. We have, again, two sets of parallel sides and four right angles, making us a rectangle. Same, not too hard, right? All right, next up, we have only one set of parallel sides and no other markings. So a four-sided figure with only one parallel sides is, of course, a trapezoid. All right. Then next up, we have two sets of congruent sides that are adjacent and no parallel sides, making us a kite. All right. Finally, we have just 2 sets of parallel sides here. We don't know anything else, and so this is a parallelogram. Finally, we have a 4-sided figure that has no markings at all. We don't have any parallel sides, no congruent sides, no right angles. So this is simply a quadrilateral. All right. So the other piece to your homework tonight is that you are going to be given a shape and then you have to solve for x. So you have to identify the shape appropriately and then know what sides are congruent in order to be able to solve for x. So in this shape, a kite, you're given these 4 sides. Well, you have to know that in a kite that you have adjacent sides congruent. So I know that 12 is congruent to x plus 6. And I know that x plus 8 is congruent to y minus 5. Well, the second set here, there's not much I can do with yet because I have 2 variables. So I have to start with my smaller sides here. And I know that 12 is equal to x plus 6. So then when I solve, I know x is 6. Great. If they ask you to just solve for x, then you're done. If you need to solve for the sides, then you're going to have to plug in. So I know that this side, of course, is 12. But now I'm going to have to plug in and solve for the other variables for my second set of congruent sides. So x plus 8, I can make the substitution here. So 6 plus 8, of course, is 14. So this side has to be 14. And then I can use that to set it equal to the other side in order to find y. So y minus 5 is 14, which means 5 has got to be 9. All right, not too bad, just an application of these. Let's do another one here. This is the example of the isosceles trapezoid, which I had mentioned before, where you have a set of parallel sides, and then you also have a set of congruent sides. So I know that 3x plus 3 equals 9, and I can solve for x. So 3x equals 6, and x equals 2. All right, now that I have that, I can plug it in for the sides. Of course, this side has got to be 9. That's the way that we made it. But up here at the top, I know 4 times 2 then, of course, has to be 8. And down in the bottom, 10 times 2 minus 5 would give me 20 minus 5, and my answer would be 15. All right. There's one other thing on your homework tonight. You are going to love this. All of my students do. Where you're going to be given some conditions and you have to try to draw it. So you have several questions where you have to draw a figure with, like in this case, a kite with 1 right angle. So you have to think about what a kite looks like. Normally, right, we would have something like this, where we have 2 sets of adjacent sides congruent. So now somehow I got to get a right angle in there. Well, I'm going to try to work it in here. So let's see if I can kind of make myself a right angle. Of course, I'm just going to denote that there. And then I'm going to bring this thing together. And I can mark my sides. So there is a kite with 1 right angle. So you have several of these. This is really perfect application of these definitions. So I'm sure you're going to love it. All right, whenever you're finished, finish up your notes, read through the examples, and begin your assignment.